We're going to start off this afternoon by talking FA Cup because we have reached the final 8 of the competition. The early kick-off comes from Craven Cottage. It's Fulham against Crystal Palace. We'll talk about that game in a little bit more detail in just a short while. But first of all, just looking broadly at the competition, we've reached the final 8. In it, we have 4 teams who've never won the competition. So has the FA Cup got a little bit of its sparkle back this season?
Yeah, I think so. Especially with the league title virtually being wrapped up. Do you know what I mean? It's usually there's a few teams in it and you've got a chance. But now, all of a sudden, that seems done. So, yeah, I like the competition this year. The teams in it, there's a chance. This is massive today and tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know, you're one game away from Wembley Stadium, playing at Wembley, semi-final, which, when I was growing up, was the FA Cup final was the ultimate. It has lost its shine. But that was...
Why for you has it lost its shine?
Well, what time's it kicking off?
12:30.
Yeah, what time's it kicking off on Cup Final Day? I don't even know.
Yeah.
It used to kick off at 3 o'clock. It was the prime game. I mean, they've even put it in between the season this year. So they play it, and then there's another league game at the end of the season, isn't there? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the Premier League finishes right at the end of May.
Exactly. So, you know...
It's where it sits now in the calendar that's the problem.
It sits in the calendar. Yeah. When I was growing up, that was the biggest thing. The FA Cup was the ultimate. It was bigger than winning the league. It was a bigger time than winning the league at the FA Cup. And now... I don't see that as much, do you know what I mean? But now I think we're getting it back because we could get 2 teams playing in the FA Cup final and that have never won it, which is amazing.
It's definitely a 3 o'clock kick-off, Saturday the 17th of May, so Brilliant. It is before the Premier League.
And that'll be there'll be Premier League games at 3 o'clock that day.
We'll wait for confirmation on that, Merce. But we suddenly got into the football calendar. but Clint, I mean, looking at it, I mean, you know, in previous years, you look back to 2008 when Portsmouth defeated Cardiff in the final, really open FA Cup. And sometimes people will look at it and say, well, it's a case of some of the bigger teams not caring as much about it. But actually, that's not true this season. It's about some of the bigger teams simply not being good enough in this competition.
Yeah, and it's been like that also in the Premier League. You still probably look at it and think Man City are the favourites, but they've got a difficult game going to Bournemouth, and Bournemouth have already beaten them in the league. So, yeah, it's wide open. Anyone can win it. You just said it could be a team that's never won it before, and that's why I love the competition. And you always see Man City are there or thereabouts because I think Pep takes the competition seriously. He does that in the Carabao Cup. He also does that in the FA Cup. But I'd love to see one of the lesser so-called teams go on and win the FA Cup this year.
Well, let's have a look at the odds, Sue, because no surprise that the 7 times winners Manchester City were beaten in the final by, of course, Manchester United last year, that they are the big favourites at 2-1. I'm a little bit surprised, given the season they're having. And these odds were out, by the way, before the injury to Chris Wood was confirmed, to see Nottingham Forest at 9-1. Are you a bit surprised by that?
Really surprised, yeah. I think... Obviously, Manchester City, because of their experience and their know-how of winning the competition, you can understand why they're right up there. I was talking to Tim about it just before, and we were looking at the different games, and we were saying, actually, it's really hard to predict a lot of the scorelines. I know Aston Villa against Preston North End being the only sort of EFL team still in the competition. So I think any Premier League side would have wanted them. But I still think, you know, at home, they're going to make it difficult. It's going to be quite tricky. We've already seen Liverpool go out. I know that they had a very much changed side. I think they made sort of 10 changes, but Plymouth obviously beaten them. I think we saw Tottenham Hotspur go to extra time against Tamworth. So we've seen some sort of upsets, and that's what you want in an FA Cup round and up to the final. You want to see that. You want to see those teams that you don't expect to progress. So it's really interesting. I couldn't call the FA Cup winners this season, and I think that's what makes it so interesting for us all.
Football calendar update. The FA Cup final will be on the 17th, then the Premier League games will be on the Sunday, and then the week after that, again on the Sunday, it'll be the final day of the season. So, Merce, that's 2 Sundays in a row. Just pop that in the diary. We'll look forward to seeing you then. 18th and 25th, the final 2 Sundays of the Premier League
I used
season.
to like the FA Cup.
Tim,
seriously.
Let's move on to the 12:15 kick-off between Fulham and Crystal Palace. And picking up what Sue was saying there about difficult to predict the winners of this one. I mean, I was surprised to see that they haven't met in the FA Cup, these two, since 1907, Fulham and Crystal Palace. But both teams absolutely bang in form at the moment. Is this one equally difficult to pick in terms of who comes out on top?
Absolutely. I think this is the hardest one to pick. Really, really difficult. Fulham have been steady all season. I think you talking about 2 fantastic managers that really took to the Premier League as well. And I just think it's a really difficult one to call. Absolutely difficult. I mean, Palace's form recently has been incredible. Mateta will be back in the side, so it obviously gives them more firepower. We talked about Eze being injured and missing Elise early on in the season, they picked up from that. They've got the boy Wharton back, who for me is an England international very, very soon. So I wouldn't like to call it. I really wouldn't, because I think that Marco Silva gets the best out of his players. With a group of players, what he's got, and the way he gets them going, and they play with an attacking threat, and players who've been thrown out of clubs in a nice way, bigger clubs, and he picks them up and he motivates them and he gets them to play to a certain style. Everyone knows their jobs. I think he's done a brilliant job. I really do. I can't praise these two clubs highly enough. You talked earlier about the lesser clubs, but them lesser clubs, when you look at the teams left in it, like Bournemouth, they're not lesser clubs this year. Brighton's, Nottingham Forest, this year, yes, they have in the past. Of course, they've been lesser clubs, but I think we might see a resurgence of these clubs. I think they might come again next year as well. They're going to have the finances. Their recruitment is outstanding. All the ties are really difficult to call.
And Clinton, just on the broader picture of Crystal Palace at the moment, I just wonder, in terms of the opportunity for success now, and we're looking specifically at today's game, a potential place in the last four as well, but Dougie Freedman, who's been so instrumental in bringing key players into the club, he appears to be heading elsewhere. At the moment, no news in terms of Oliver Glasner's contract and perhaps a contract extension. They're at a bit of a crossroads at the club at the moment, aren't they, in terms of where they go next? And today is a key part of that, isn't it? Yeah,
it's massive for Palace to get to the semi-final. They ain't done that since Alan Pardew was there and done that famous dance on the touchline. So I don't know what.
Why did you bring that up?
Because Pardew loves a mention, so
everyone's back around the nation on YouTube right now.
That's what I mean, the little dancing celebration. But I think it's a golden opportunity. We're looking at their away form, and I think it's a big opportunity. Fulham are good, though. Tim's right. Yeah. Fulham are a really good team under Marco Silva. And it's going to be a struggle for Palace, because let me tell you, Dougie Freedman, the job he's done, the director of football, the players, the little gems that he's brought in and sold them on for more money. You can just think of people like Elise, Mark Gay, Eze, Wharton. The list goes on and on. So they will miss him. And it's going to be big shoes for whoever goes in there. But I think Glasner will get his contract sorted out. There's a lot of people panicking at the start of the season when Palace didn't start well enough. Would Glasner come under pressure? I think he's done a brilliant job last season, and he's done a really good job this season. If you can get them to an FA Cup semi-final, the fans will be happy for sure.